Hello everybody. Today's project is the repair of an E.F. Parker sunburst lantern, part 2, using that hot knife to expose two solder joints. These Parkers would have a strip soldered across the bottom to retain the candle holder. The candle socket or the whale oil font would have corresponding tabs to slide under this strap, and that allows them to be interchangeable and replaceable. That's a theme you often find with early lighting. There'll be glass oil lamps with stubs to go into existing candle holders. There is, of course, the rush and candle holder combination light. And in this case, a skating lantern with interchangeable light sources. I'm going to go ahead and make the candle socket. The whale oil font would be an expensive piece to reproduce, and not being original, I don't think it would add much value to the lantern. In addition, be a fun thing to try and find. This is the tab that will go under the little strip of tin in the bottom of the lantern. And it goes in just like this. I'll put this candle socket on top of the strip, and once I get it centered up, just make a mark with a Sharpie so that when I go over to the soldering bench, I'll be able to locate it in the proper position. And now I can tack it into place. I'm just using an electric soldering iron, and even a quite small one at that. I like this iron for repair work and small jobs because it heats up very quickly. So when I'm back and forth, I don't really have to think about it. I can just turn it on. I don't lose any time really waiting for it to heat up. It lacks the mass for, serious production work, but it does just fine for small projects like this. Just throwing a hem on this little strip of tin here for the candle socket. And I'm going to go ahead and make this with a gap in the circumference. And that gap is handy if you let a candle burn all the way down to the socket. You can use a pick and push it up out of the candle cup. Here you can see I'm just running the solder around the circumference. up with a little denatured alcohol. I was surprised how stable that little socket is. It really tried my best to shake it loose, but it's in there pretty well. So there's the new door and the new candle holder in place. So I'm going to head up to the glass shop and cut a new pane for this lantern. Now, there are three kinds of glass that you're likely to run into for a lantern like this. The first would be crown glass, and crown glass is made by spinning a disc of glass from a rod. They would blow like a sphere and then open that up into a disc. The center where it was connected to the punty would be the crown, and they would then cut panes from this crown glass. The second type, which we have here, is known as cylinder glass, and a cylinder would be blown and then opened up onto a table. And the third type is float glass, which would be floated on liquid metal. Both crown glass and cylinder glass have a characteristic waviness. That's what we're after here. You can see when you're cutting glass, the way I like to do it is to score the glass and then hold it with my index fingers centered underneath the score mark, pinch with my thumbs, and pull down and away, and it separates pretty cleanly that way. Just sanding up the edges here. This glass is a little thick in one spot. One thing about crown and cylinder glass, they are fairly uneven in thickness. They're not polished or ground down. So this glass, while it was about 2 mil throughout, it had one section that was almost 1/4 inch, and that section was hanging up in the bezels. Using a little pewter black now to darken the areas where whoever worked on this before had put that lamp part in the top, and then also want to darken the little strip because we don't want that to look brand new in an otherwise antique lamp. And now here I'm taking the hot knife, and all of that paint and wax that I pushed out of the way to find that, I'm just bringing it back and putting it back in place. And then I have an extra little piece there that has some soot and dirt and things in it, so it kind of looks just like what was in there. You can see it pretty much disappears in there. You could certainly tell that there's a strip now, but it doesn't jump out. And since the original lamp would have had a strip, it looks proper. Now I'm going to give all the brand new parts 2 coats of this pewter black, and then wash them clean, dry them off. Make sure they're good and dry, and then we take it down to the paint shop. I'm going to take some burnt sienna and just sort of with a sponge, I'm going to sort of do a little bit of paint around the solder where they had that lamp piece in. I don't want to alter the original finish. And I won't finish this with Japanning, which this lamp would have originally had, because I don't know how to make aged Japanning. I can fake aged Japanning, but if I Japan it, it will look brand new, and I don't want one brand new piece on an antique lantern. So we're going to go ahead and match the finish that's on there rather than put an original finish. We're going to match the existing finish, at least in appearance. And so this is some old Krylon flat black spray paint from the 90s, and it wouldn't spray at all, so I soaked the Lego cap here in turpentine and put some terps down in the straw, and I kind of picked that area of the straw out. And I did get it spraying, but it won't. The cap doesn't work. So you can turn it on, you can't turn it off. So you'll notice here I start off the work and then I finish off the work, and you see me come in with my other hand there to actually twist the cap off. Otherwise, it would just keep spraying. I'm drying it with a heat gun again, and then I'm going to rub some sawdust floor sweepings, like concrete powder, dust, dirt, sawdust. And this really isn't to make it dirty, but it burnishes the surface so that the new paint doesn't have a new paint surface. And the other thing I did before I painted, I thought I got footage of it, but I guess I missed it, was a dish soap. I painted on dish soap for a resist. So there's the body of the lantern with the replacement door. And in the top of the picture, that disc is the heat disc that I made earlier, and the sunburst of the original lantern. So you can see how well that finish matches. Rather than have 3 or 4 parts with brand new Japanning. When they put that electric lamp part in, whoever did that, they bored 2 large holes for that part to fit in the handle. And originally that handle would not have these 2 large holes. So what I'm doing now is tinning the surface of the ends of the handle. And I'm just preparing a thin piece of tin, which I'm going to put in between. And we'll solder that up. And then I'll punch a smaller hole in the center of that. And get everything assembled. And because I don't really trust the tin around those holes, I made up a little washer, this little washer right here, which would not normally be a part of this lantern, but for safety's sake, I didn't want to risk this thing falling off a hook, or falling to the ground. So I made that little washer so that the tin around those 2 holes doesn't have to hold the lantern. This is a great project. I had a lot of fun, particularly matching the patinas. I think the result came out pretty well. We get all the glass back in this thing, and that'll do it. Thanks for watching.